You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. At the end of this show, I'm going to lay out what I'm going to do for the rest of the week. There are some things that I overlooked, so I want to get it all out there at the end of this show, give you an idea of what I'm going to do. This is an exciting time on the sports calendar. We've got the MLB trade deadline coming up. The NHL offseason is kicking in a high gear. NFL training camps are getting underway. The NBA draft is coming up. Yes, our biological clock as sports fans are still out of whack a little bit. But this is an exciting time. There's a lot of NHL news to talk about. The NHL draft was Friday and Saturday, and with that came a flurry of moves. Now, I'm not going to get into the draft itself, mainly because I don't know anything about the prospects. It would be unfair for me to give scouting reports. I haven't done any work on anyone. But I do know the NHL. So I feel comfortable commenting on one of the biggest trades in recent NHL history. And I don't think that's hyperbolic. For years, we've heard that Oliver Ekman-Larsson could be traded. I remember one summer, I don't remember the year, but there was one summer that Islanders fans clamored for an Ekman-Larsson trade. Would have made perfect sense. But the Coyotes always hung on to him. Not anymore. You remember when I raved about the possibility of a Coyotes D-man core having Ekman-Larsson, Shane Gostisbehere, and Jacob Chychrun? We'll never see it. Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Connor Garland are now Canucks. In exchange, the Coyotes got Jay Beagle, Louis Eriksson, Antoine Roussel, the 9th overall pick, which they used on Dylan Guenther, a 2nd round pick next year, and a 7th round pick in 2023. The Coyotes are retaining 12% of Ekman-Larsson's salary. That equates to $990,000. So what that all means is the Canucks cleared $4,740,000 off their books. The thing is, though, Connor Garland is a restricted free agent, so it's possible that he signs a $5 million per year contract. So this actually could be a net negative for the Canucks in terms of money. In terms of hockey, though, my God, this is a great trade for the Canucks. I don't believe that they're done, that they're going to have another bad season. It looked like Travis Green was building something special. In the bubble, the Canucks made it to the second round. Granted, last year, they were not a great team. If memory serves, they were in the playoff hunt, but no one thought they'd make a lot of noise. Their big COVID outbreak kind of negated any chance they had of sneaking into the playoffs. In the NHL, you can sneak into the playoffs and go on big runs. Okay, we just saw it with the Canadiens. We saw it with the Islanders in the bubble. It's done a lot. So I don't buy the notion that the Canucks aren't gonna do anything next year. I think that's a bunch of nonsense. Adding Ekman-Larsson and Garland will only help their playoff chances for next year. Is Ekman-Larsson the player that he once was? The answer is no. Last year he had 24 points in 46 games. That's the lowest point total of his career since the 12-13 season, where he also had 24 points. I'll throw this out there also. Ekman-Larsson isn't the greatest defensive defenseman in the world. He's more of an offensive defenseman. He hasn't had a positive plus-minus since the 12-13 season. I understand that he's playing for the Coyotes. They're a really bad team. Ekman-Larsson's out there against the opponent's best players, but to not have a positive plus-minus as a defenseman since 12-13, that's tough. Last year he was a minus 17. It's hard for me to overlook that. He's not a great defensive hockey player, but he's a gifted offensive defenseman. He's a really good player. The Canucks got a really good player in Ekman-Larsson and a really good player in Connor Garland. Put up back-to-back 39-point seasons. It looks like he's going to be a really good player in this league for a long time. Garland had to work his tail off to get here. He was a 5th-round pick in 2015. No one gave him much of a shot to really make it in the NHL. But you know what? He fought, he grinded, and now he's turned into a really, really good player. The Canucks got 2 quality players here while getting rid of 3 terrible contracts. There's no planet where Jay Beagle is worth $3 million a year. There's no planet where Louis Eriksson is worth $6 million a year. Maybe once upon a time he was, not anymore. And there's no planet where Antoine Roussel is worth $3 million a year. I mean, I like Roussel. He's a goon, physical player. There's a role for him in the league. But you don't give goons big contracts that pay them $3 million a year. You know, it's kind of interesting. Antoine Roussel may be the best player that the Canucks traded, and they get Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Connor Garland. I know that they gave up a couple high picks, the 9th overall pick and a 2nd rounder in 2022, but you got rid of 3 really bad contracts. Canucks fans are going to love that. I mean, they've hated these contracts for a long time. Now, not only did you get rid of those contracts, but you got two really good players in return. As for the Coyotes, this is similar to what they did with Andrew Ladd. Give us some picks, and we'll take your bad contracts. Are those three guys combined worth just a first, second, and a seventh? Probably not. I mean, Andrew Ladd got 2 seconds and a third. If Ladd gets 2 seconds and a third, Beagle, Erickson, and Roussel should have gotten you a little more than a first, a second, and a seventh. Make that seventh a third, and I'll be okay with this. Look, you can't evaluate this trade for the Coyotes right now. We've got to see what Dylan Guenther turns into. I'll say this. He was a consensus top 10 prospect from all major NHL draft evaluators. I guess what I'm confused about is this. If you're not going to position yourself as contenders and you're just going to take on bad contracts, why would you trade for Shane Gostisbehere? I understand that the Coyotes needed defensemen, but why would you give up a second for Gostisbehere? It makes no sense. You should be getting those picks, not trading them away. But all in all, this trade makes sense for both sides. I believe that Ekman-Larsson will do a really good job with the Canucks. Connor Garland's going to do a really good job for the Canucks. And the Coyotes got a couple high picks in exchange for taking on some bad contracts and moving on from a couple really talented players. Look, their window to win isn't now. It's like 5 years from now. So yeah, trade Ekman-Larsson. And yeah, trade Garland. You just better hit on these picks. If you don't, the Coyotes are going to be really bad for a really, really long time. Moving on now to the Rangers, trading Pavel Buchnevich to the Blues for Sammy Blais and a second rounder next year. By that, I mean this coming NHL draft, not the one that just happened. The one that's going to happen about 300 days from now. This is a strange trade for the Rangers. I don't get this. Why are you moving on from Buchnevich? I had no idea that he was available. What, you didn't want to pay him? At this very moment, the Rangers have over $22 million in cap room. You didn't think you had room for Buchnevich? You make room for him. Buchnevich is a really good player. Set a career high in points with 48, career high in plus minus with plus 12. He's a really, really good player. Like, I remember when the Rangers brought him over from Russia. They were really excited about it. Their fans were really excited about it. And Buchnevich has proven them right. He's a really, really good player. I mean, I'll say this in the Rangers' defense. A lot of people are killing the whole, I'm not going to do that. I actually think this is a fair return. You got a second rounder and a good young player in Sammy Blais. I like Blais. He was part of the Blues Cup run in 2019. He put up 15 points in 36 games last year. He's young. He's only 25. And if you wanted to get a winger who's not going to score as much and do the other things that you need to do to be successful, sure. Get Blay. He fits that mold really, really well. It's just a strange move because I don't think the Rangers should have moved on from Buchnevich. I mean, make no mistake about it. Buchnevich with the Blues is actually kind of a scary thought. You put him with Ryan O'Reilly and David Perron? That sounds really, really good to me. The Blues win this trade easily. This isn't a terrible trade for the Rangers. It's not like they got a bad haul for Buchnevich. I just wouldn't have traded him if I was Chris Drury. And I think that Buchnevich is going to do really, really good things with the Blues. Like, if you were to write down on a piece of paper what the Blues really needed, it would look a lot like Buchnevich. A top-line left winger who can score. That's Buchnevich. Speaking of top-line left wingers, Taylor Hall has re-signed with the Boston Bruins on a 4-year deal worth $24 million. A great move by the Bruins, and a great move for Taylor Hall. Alright, Hall took the money and went to Buffalo. You thought maybe, just maybe, he could turn them into a playoff team. But no, he got a big 1-year deal with the hopes that he would hit free agency after a big season and set himself up for an even bigger contract. It did not work. Hall crashed and burned in Buffalo. The Sabres were forced to get rid of him for pennies on the dollar. Now, a lot of people were skeptical of how Hall would do with the Bruins. Oh, Hall has nothing left. He's been dreadful for the Sabres. Only scored 2 goals, minus 21. He has nothing left. Hall was basically a perfect fit for the Bruins. Put up 8 goals in 16 games. Put up 14 points. Played really well in the playoffs. 5 points in 11 games. See, the thing is, with the Bruins, Hall doesn't need to be the man. It can be the perfection line. It can be David Krejci if he resigns. It can be Craig Smith. It can be Charlie McAvoy. It can be Tuukka Rask. Hall can settle into more of a supporting role. Look, I think one thing that we've learned all throughout Taylor Hall's career is, as great as he is, you're not going to win a Stanley Cup with him as your best player. Having said that, if you put Hall on the second line, it doesn't get much better than that. So this is like the perfect fit for Hall. The Bruins stole Hall from the Sabres. Now they re-sign him at a below-market deal. I think it's a fair bet to say that Taylor Hall would have gotten more than $6 million per year if he had hit free agency. The Islanders would have given him more. There's no question about that. Outstanding move for the Bruins. Outstanding move for Taylor Hall. This is a match made in heaven. Good job by both sides. Moving on now to the Oilers being very close to signing Zach Hyman to a 7-year deal worth $38.5 million That's $5.5 million per year. And I'll say this. Early on in the offseason, the Oilers are the big winners. What's the number one thing they've needed? Talent around Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Well, they traded for Duncan Keith. They brought back Mike Smith. And they just added one of the best two-way forwards in the NHL. Hyman does everything right. You'd be hard-pressed to find a flaw in his game. He got Selke Trophy votes last year, put up 33 points in 43 games for the Leafs. I guess the one knock on him would be that he does disappear in the playoffs. And make no mistake about it, McDavid and Draisaitl disappeared in the playoffs also. So this does come with some risk, but if you can add a really talented player like Hyman to a team that really needed to add talent, you do that if you're Ken Holland. Outstanding move by the Oilers. They've added some really talented players. It wouldn't surprise me if the Oilers went on a big playoff run next year. Lord knows McDavid and Draisaitl deserve it. Will Dave Tippett get them there? I don't know. For the Oilers' sake, I hope he does. I'd like to see the best player in the NHL, and arguably the second best player in the NHL, win a cup. Moving on now to another huge trade. Oliver Ekman-Larsson being traded got most of the headlines, but this trade should have gotten some of those headlines. Seth Jones is now a Chicago Blackhawk. He went to the Blackhawks along with the 32nd or 31st overall pick, depending on how you look at it. Basically what happened was the Coyotes had the 11th overall pick, but they had to forfeit it. So some people stylize all the picks afterwards as being 12, 13, 14. Some people stylize the Blue Jackets pick as being 11, the Flames pick as being 12. I would tend towards saying that it's the latter, because there was no pick made. Like Tyler Boucher was the 10th overall pick. The next player taken was Cole Sillinger. That means he's the 11th overall pick, right? Not the 12th, the 11th. What comes after 10? 11, not 12. But it depends on who you talk to. A 6th rounder next year also went to the Blackhawks. In exchange, the Blue Jackets got Adam Boqvist, the 11th or 12th overall pick, which they used on Cole Sillinger. Kind of funny how things like that work out. The 44th overall pick, keep that in mind. And a 1st rounder next year. Jones will sign an 8-year deal worth $76 million. So, just to recap, the Blue Jackets traded Jones, the 32nd overall pick, and a 6th rounder in 2022 to the Blackhawks for Adam Boqvist, the 11th overall pick, the 44th overall pick, and a 1st rounder in 2022. This is a terrible trade for the Blackhawks. It makes literally 0 sense. So wait a minute, you signal that you're gonna go into a little bit of a rebuild, right? You trade Duncan Keith. That's what that means. You're rebuilding. Now you're trading 2 firsts and a really good young defenseman in a win-now move. Why? The Blackhawks aren't a good team. Excluding the round that they won against the Oilers in the bubble, the last playoff series they won was 2015. Their last cup year. Don't tell me that you actually think you can contend. You just mortgage the future for a really good player, okay? Seth Jones is a really good player, but he's not going to get you over the top. Best case scenario, you sneak into the playoffs and you're eliminated in the first round because you're really not a good team. Here's a newsflash for you. With your goalie situation, you're not doing much. You were doing fine. You had traded Keith. You had traded Carl Soderberg earlier. It seemed like Patrick Kane was next. It seemed like Jonathan Toews was next. Now you're making a win-now move that won't result in you winning now. This is a steal for the Blue Jackets. I mean, I'll say this. I don't blame them for not wanting to pay Jones $9.5 million a year. Seth Jones isn't worth that. Seth Jones is coming off 2 really bad seasons. 30 points in 56 games in 1920. Last year, 28 points in 56 games. He was a minus 18. You're going to pay him $9.5 million a year? Come on, that's absurd. For moving on from a player who wanted to be massively overpaid, the Blue Jackets moved up 20 spots in the first round, got a second rounder, and another first, not to mention a really good young defenseman in Adam Boqvist. Put up 16 points in 35 games for the Blackhawks. He's not even old enough to drink yet, and he's putting up those numbers. He's a really good player. This makes no sense for the Blackhawks whatsoever. In fact, I'll even go a step further. 5 years from now, we could be looking at this trade as a seminal reason for why the Blackhawks are in the doldrums of the NHL. This is a fantastic trade for the Blue Jackets. They easily win it. Welcome back to Columbus, John Davidson. Oh my Lanta. What a move by the Blue Jackets. So like I said, the 44th overall pick was traded from the Blackhawks to the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets didn't end up selecting a player with that pick. The Hurricanes ended up using it. They took Alexei Haimosalmi. How did the Hurricanes get that pick, you may ask? They traded Jake Bean to the Blue Jackets. So in a very short period of time, the Blue Jackets got 2 pretty good young defensemen. I'll take Boqvist over Bean, but Bean's a solid player. Put up 12 points in 42 games last year for the Hurricanes. Didn't play well in the playoffs, but he's 23 years old. He has a ton of potential. Think about this D-man core for a minute. Zach Werenski, Vladislav Gavrikov, Adam Boqvist, and Jake Bean. That has the makings of a really solid blue line. Like, I'll say this. I think the Blue Jackets are going to be a solid team next year. Maybe they won't make the playoffs, but they'll be markedly better than they were last year. It's all on Brad Larson now. I was skeptical of that hire. Let's see what he can do with this team. I'll tell you, there's a lot of talent there. Moving on now to the Sabres, trading Sam Reinhart to the Panthers for Devon Levi and a top 10 protected first rounder next year. If the Panthers end up picking in the top 10, the Sabres will get the Panthers pick in 2023. Look, I don't know anything about Levi. I don't know if he's going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be bad. I know that he was a 7th round pick. The only reason that I'm bringing him up is because the Sabres desperately need goaltending. It's nothing against Linus Ullmark. I like Ullmark. I think he's a really good player, but once you get past him, it's absolutely pathetic. So sure, add some goalie depth. And get a first rounder for a really good player in Reinhart. Yeah, that's what the Sabres should do. Blow things up. I feel sorry for Don Granato. He's going to be put in an even worse spot than he was last year. But this is what's best for business. Reinhart isn't going to do the Sabres any good. He's a really good player, but the Sabres' window to win is like 5 years from now. So if you can get a first-round pick for him, yes, you do that. You've got to finish it, though, by trading Jack Eichel. But trading Reinhart makes a ton of sense. As for the Panthers, this makes them a lot scarier. Reinhart's a really good player. Think about this first line for a minute, assuming this is what the Panthers do. Jonathan Huberdeau, Alexander Barkov, and Sam Reinhart. That's scary. I know that Reinhart took a step back last year. Career low in points, career low in plus minus. But he's playing for the Sabres, okay? There's not much you're going to be able to do there. Reinhart did score 25 goals. He's put up at least 22 goals in each of the past 4 seasons. He's put up 40 points in every full year he's been in the NHL. He's a very gentlemanly player. Really good playmaker. This is an even trade for both sides. The Sabres get a first rounder. They need that more than quality NHL talent. And the Panthers got a consistent 20-goal scorer. It makes perfect sense for both sides. Moving on now to the Avalanche, signing Cale Makar to a 6-year extension worth $54 million. That's $9 million a year for a guy who's only been in the NHL for 2 seasons. Even though he's only been in the NHL for 2 seasons, I have no problems with this move. Makar has already established himself as one of the best defensemen in the NHL. Not one of the best young defensemen, best defenseman overall. He won the Calder Trophy last year. This year he was the runner-up in the Norris Trophy race, got some Hart Trophy votes. He's a sensational player. Yes, You lock him up long term if you're the Avalanche. You need to do whatever you can to keep him on your team for as long as possible. This guy's a point-a-game defenseman. Put up 44 points in 44 games last year. His rookie year, 50 points in 57 games. That's not that far off from being point a game. This kid is sensational. The sky's the limit for him. $9 million a year is fair for him. I can't get on the Avalanche for that. He's worth that. Like, if Cale Makar was to hit the open market, he would get at the bare minimum $9 million a year. I guarantee you there'd be at least one team that would offer $10 million, $11 million. An absurd contract. Great move by the Avalanche. Moving on now to the Flyers and Blue Jackets, swapping Jacob Voracek and Cam Atkinson. That's it. No picks, no retained salary, no prospects. Just Voracek for Atkinson, straight up. Don't you think the Flyers are just changing things for the sake of changing things? Voracek is better than Atkinson. If you want to move on from Voracek for Atkinson, I don't mind that. Atkinson's cheaper. And you're going to need to pay Carter Hart and Travis Sanheim soon. But if you're going to make that trade, you've got to get something in addition to Atkinson. This is like the definition of making a trade to make a trade. This doesn't make the Flyers a lot better. If anything, it makes them worse. Will they be able to re-sign Hart and Sanheim now? Yeah, probably, but as far as their chances for this year, they're no better. Like I said, they're just changing things to change things. Bringing in Ryan Ellis, bringing in Rasmus Ristolainen. It's a new era of Flyers hockey, but it's not necessarily a better era. As for the Blue Jackets, they bring Voracek home. Like I said, he's better than Atkinson. Like I said, the Blue Jackets are having a great offseason. If the Oilers are the big winners, the Blue Jackets aren't that far behind them. Here are the stats for you. Last year, Voracek put up 43 points in 53 games. He only scored 9 goals. He was a minus 12. Atkinson put up 34 points in 56 games. He scored 15 goals. And he was a minus 16. But Voracek is going to bring a physical element to the Blue Jackets that Atkinson just doesn't bring. The Flyers are no better than they were before this trade. The Blue Jackets got better. Great job by them. Great job by John Davidson. You can't say enough good things about what he's done here. Moving on now to the Kings, signing Trevor Moore to a 2-year extension worth $3.76 million. That's $1.88 million per year. And this is a solid move for the Kings. Moore had a good year last year, put up 23 points in 56 games. You have to pay him off the one good year, but you couldn't break the bank for him. So you give him less than $2 million a year. That's more than fair. Moore's a good young player. Put up 23 points in 56 games last year. I have no complaints whatsoever about this move. This is a smart extension by the Kings. Moving on now to the Red Wings, re-signing Mark Stahl to a 1-year deal worth $2 million. This is an interesting move for Stahl. It makes sense for the Red Wings to want to bring him back. Stahl gives a big veteran presence to a team that really needs it. But why would Stahl want to go to the Red Wings again? He just suffered through a terrible season. Not himself personally, 10 points in 56 games. That's about what you can expect from Stahl. I'm just confused why he'd want to go back. I know that he got a full no movement clause. I just don't understand what the Red Wings have to offer him at this stage in his career. He should be going Stanley Cup hunting. He came close a few times with the Rangers, but could never get there. He's not going to win a cup with the Red Wings. I mean, this is a good move by the Red Wings. It makes sense to want to bring him back. I just don't know why Stahl would want to go back to Detroit. Hit free agency, wait a little bit, then if no one comes calling, re-sign with the Red Wings. Moving on now to the Golden Knights. Re-signing Alec Martinez to a 3-year deal worth $15 million. Nothing's official yet, but it does seem to be trending in that direction. This is a great move for the Golden Knights. If Martinez had hit free agency, even at his advanced age, he turns 34 today. Happy birthday. He'd be one of the best defensemen on the market. And Martinez has had a career renaissance in Vegas. He put up 32 points in 53 games, put up 6 points in 19 playoff games. He's an incredibly valuable Golden Knight. I'll say this, the Golden Knights are in cap hell. They have just under $4.4 million cap space as of right now. That's not counting the Martinez contract. So, who are you moving on from? Bear in mind, you've got to also re-sign Nolan Patrick. Some tough decisions are incoming for the Golden Knights. But to bring Martinez back is a really good move. He's invaluable to the Golden Knights. His playoff experience, obviously he has the iconic moment winning the Stanley Cup for the Kings over the Rangers. And now you keep that blue line intact with Pietrangelo, Weber, and Martinez. Good job by them. The last hockey story to talk about is Sam Bennett re-signing with the Panthers on a 4-year deal worth $17.6 million. That's $4.4 million a year. And this is a terrible move by the Panthers. I know that Bennett was excellent since coming to the Panthers. He had 15 points in 10 games. And he put up 5 points in the Panthers' 5 playoff games against the Lightning. But you're paying him off that incredibly small sample size. Realize, that's just 15 games. Look at what Bennett has done all throughout his career. He was a major disappointment for the Flames. If you look at his total stats for last year, he put up 27 points in 48 games. That's not bad. That's good for a third liner. But you don't give that guy just under $4.5 million per year. This is a huge overpay. Are we sure that Bennett's going to be a good top 6 forward? Because that's the role that he's going to play for the Panthers. He's going to be on their second line. Are we sure that he can do that for a full year? I'm not. bad move by the Panthers. This is an overpay. Way to spoil the goodwill that you engendered after trading for Sam Reinhart. Although I'll say this, one thing that's noteworthy, Sam Reinhart was the second overall pick in 2014. Sam Bennett was the fourth overall pick in that draft. You know who the first overall pick was? Aaron Ekblad. So the Panthers have 3 of the first 4 picks of the 2014 draft on their roster. I remember that draft. That was supposed to be a really good draft. If you were to go back in time and tell people that in 2021, the Panthers would have Aaron Ekblad, Sam Reinhart, and Sam Bennett, the NHL draft observers in 2014 would look at you like you were nuts. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. And I'll start with a player making a trade request that we just found out about. Chandler Jones evidently wants out of Arizona. And he's wanted out for a while. It's kind of interesting that this is coming out now. I feel like that means the chances of a trade are slim to none. But it's certainly worth talking about. Jones did not have a good year last year. He was hurt, only played in 5 games. And when he played, he wasn't that good. He had a 62.6 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. That's by far and away the worst grade of his career. But Jones does have talent. Realize, the year before, he put up an 86 overall grade and had 19 sacks. Now, he wants out because he wants a bigger contract. I can understand where he's coming from, but I can also understand where the Cardinals are coming from. Jones is still one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. If he were to hit free agency, he'd get a mammoth contract. The thing is, though, the Cardinals are saying, you're 31, you're coming off a year where you only played in 5 games, we're not going to pay you. So now Jones wants out. He wants to go to a team that will pay him. I'll say this. I'd love him on the Jets. It's not their biggest hole by any stretch, but I would like the Jets to add one more pass rusher. Just to really give that pass rush an extra jolt. But I don't think Jones is going to be traded. This is something that ESPN is doing, and I don't like it. They're reporting this old news way after the fact. When Adam Schefter dropped that bomb about Aaron Rodgers on draft day, it came out after that he wasn't reporting on any new information. That had been the case for a while. But that came out well after he upended the NFL draft. I give Jeremy Fowler credit for putting Jones's trade request in the past tense, but why is it coming out now? Why wouldn't it come out like right after the trade request is made? Everything leaks. I don't think Chandler Jones will be traded. He'll play out the final year of his contract, then he'll hit free agency. If he gets hurt again, he's not going to get a big contract. If he puts up another monster season, he'll get a huge, huge, huge deal. Moving on now to the Bengals signing Sam Hubbard to a 4-year extension worth $40 million. And this is a great move for the Bengals. After losing Carl Lawson to my beloved Jets and seeing William Jackson go to Washington, the Bengals really needed to lock up their key pieces. Hubbard is a key piece for them. He's gotten better and better every year that he's been in the NFL. He's never had a Pro Football Focus grade worse than 66.6. Last year he had a 68 overall grade. He's young. He's just 25. He's getting better and better. His sack production went down, which I don't like, but his Pro Football Focus grade went up. That means that he was doing the little things. You don't always need to get a sack. If you make the quarterback uncomfortable and force him to throw the ball before he's ready, more often than not, that's good enough. So this is a great move by the Bengals in locking up a really good player. The contract is more than fair. Great job by Cincy. I'll close this show out with some MLB Valk talk. Big shocker. The San Diego Padres made a big trade. They acquired Adam Frazier from the Pirates for Tucupita Marcano, Michel Miliano, and Jack Sowinski. The Pirates are also sending $1.4 million to the Padres. At first, I was confused about this trade for the Padres. Why would you want to go after Adam Frazier? I get the talent that Frazier is. Okay, he was an all-star this year, first time in his career. He's leading the majors in hits. He's hitting .324. He's a great player. One of the most underrated players in baseball. But the Padres didn't have an obvious need for a guy like Frazier. They had no holes in their lineup except a catcher. I'm not a Victor Caratini fan. But it came out a little after that trade from Ken Rosenthal and Dennis Lin of The Athletic that Eric Hosmer has been bandied about in trade discussions. So if Hosmer was to be traded, you could slide Jake Cronenworth over to first, and that would open up second base for Frazier. And I don't mind the Padres trading Hosmer. Hosmer has disappointed since signing that big deal in San Diego. 8 years, $144 million. You've got to do better than what Hosmer has done. He hasn't been awful. Like, I'll say this. I'll take Eric Hosmer on the Yankees. If Hosmer isn't traded in the next 5 days, at the winter meetings, ask about a Hosmer trade. I like Hosmer. That's my only concern about this trade from the Padres' end of things. Where are you going to put him in the lineup? But if you're going to trade Hosmer, I have no problem with that. Frazier is better than Hosmer, and he's a lot cheaper too. As for the Pirates, this is a really underwhelming haul. You don't need to know anything about Miliano and Sowinski. They're really schmegeggies. The only guy worth mentioning is Marcano. A guy who hasn't set the world on fire this year by any stretch, but I like his positional versatility. He's played second, third, left, and right in the bigs. I like guys like that. He's a contact hitter. He has no power whatsoever. He's just a straight contact hitter. He's going to try to drag bunt and use his speed to beat it out. He's not the smartest base runner in the world. But I like Marcano. I think he can pan out. The thing is, though, if he's the only good prospect you're getting for Adam Frazier, that's a terrible job by the Pirates. And it's not like you needed to trade Frazier now. He's going to be a free agent after next season. So you could wait a little bit. You didn't need to jump the gun here. Bad job by the Pirates, and a great job by the Padres. You know what? I'll say this. If you can get a great player like Frazier for cheap, you do it, and you worry about fit later. Okay, here's what the rest of the week is going to look like. Obviously, you're going to get a Yankees show tonight. NHL free agency is set to start on Wednesday. So what that means is Thursday, I'm going to go team by team breaking down what everyone did in free agency. And yes, 24 hours is more than enough time to break everything down. NHL free agency usually happens really quickly. That will be the regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show on Thursday. Thursday night is the NBA draft. So what that means is on Friday, you'd think that I'd recap all the big NBA draft stories. It's not that easy, though, because Friday is the MLB trade deadline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the two. The first part of that show will be me breaking down all the big stories from the NBA draft. Trades, picks, you name it. The second part will be breaking down all the trades that happened in advance of the trade deadline. So you're getting two big shows to close out the week. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying, shout out to you, Jackie Mason.